It's a 7:01 Central. We'll go ahead and get kicked off and let some of these let some join us a little bit late. We're at about 45 people online right now, so I know that'll increase as we go over this. January 13th, right? We're getting ready to approach postseason here in a couple weeks, and appreciate everybody joining us. Daniel's on tonight, has some videos for us to go through and talk through some of these situations. I want to be careful and realize that our intention here is to prevent going down a rat hole and all the what ifs of what could happen, but really show you the situation and talk through some of the things that we're thinking about in these type of situations. Daniel and I talked prior to this meeting and wanted to look at some control videos. And when is control? A lot of times control is felt. It even says it in the rule book. Control is felt on a lot of calls, and so we've got to make sure that obviously we know the rules, we know the criteria, we know what a Merkle is, we know what control on the mat beyond reaction time is. We know, whether the leg should be hooked and should it not. Where should the hips be? Are we looking at weight on the hands? Are we looking at hip to hip? Are we looking at hip superiority? That's another term that's thrown around quite a bit, is hip superiority, and a very good term there. How many criteria do you need to have? Do you need to have 3 or 4 criteria in order for you to make that takedown call? And at the end of the day, it's feel. It's feel on so many calls, and that comes with mat experience, mat time, positioning, mechanics, distance from the action, anticipation, knowing the speed and the experience of the wrestlers. You're going to see control a whole lot different in a semifinals or a finals of a state tournament versus a first-year JV tournament on those types of things. And in high school, obviously, we don't have riding time, and so that gives us an extra second, if you will, and don't hold me to that 1 second. That gives us an extra moment or two to be able to let it sit, let it ride, let it burn, or some of the terms that many of us have heard on the internet and things like that. Let that action continue to play out rather than call the takedown quick and then realize, oh crap, now I've got to reverse it or take it off or give the reverse, and now the other person, instead of being up 3, is down 1 after the reverse. So we want to make sure that we see the action, we process the action, we let it happen, we let it burn, we realize control. And again, think about it this way, and I've had this conversation with coaches several times who want that quick takedown, both on the high school and college level, is that the response oftentimes is, coach, if I give that takedown, he obviously didn't have it for more than a second. You're wanting a second worth of control, and in my book, that's not control. It's not that quick. On the college, many of you are familiar with the college rules in the past on the hand touch takedown. They've taken that away. That's not a rule any longer on that side. So, what are your criteria for a takedown on the high school side? And again, it's control on the mat beyond reaction time, and we want to make sure we put that together. Daniel's got some videos for us to take us through some of these as we approach postseason. And so again, postseason time is where we need to ensure standardization, proper mechanics. Please know your coach misconduct rule at the table. Coach misconduct doesn't mean that they were a bad coach and they yelled at you and made you feel bad. That's not what misconduct means. That's an unsportsmanlike conduct. Coach misconduct basically is a delay of match. They've come to the table to question a call, even if they say the words, I want to know what your criteria were for making that takedown, right? They are delaying the match. That is a misconduct call. A proper question of a call at the table would be, hey, I heard you say the words 4 when you were swiping. I saw you swipe 4. They only put 2 near fall on the point on the scoreboard, and you confirmed that you had a 4 swipe, and that needs to be changed to 4 near fall. So that's a good question versus questioning your judgment, even if they ask for an interpretation during those words. So we've got to use misconduct, and the reason why I'm begging for you to use misconduct as we get into these final weeks of the season is because when they get to regionals, when they get to state, and we will hit it very hard at the state tournament. I promise you, ask any state tournament official. That's one of the first things we talk about, is to enforce the misconduct rule. Is that many coaches are saying, I haven't had that called all year. It doesn't make the call wrong. It is something that we need to enforce. So Daniel, we're up to 54. I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'll monitor the chat and try to mute people as they come in.
Perfect. Welcome everybody. Hope everybody had a great holiday and New Year, and hope the season's going well as we're getting towards the latter end of the season and getting close to postseason stuff. So appreciate everybody's participation on our previous meetings. This format will be very similar to what we had before. So get ready to participate via a lot of polls that are coming up. So I'm going to show a video, and then we'll launch a poll, and we'll see kind of where everybody lands. I think our last meeting was really great. We got to see, some consensus on certain control situations. And in many cases, I think we had some good discussion where the majority had voted one way, and it was an opportunity for clarity so that we could have more consistency as a chapter. This will be a kind of a continuation. We actually covered quite a bit of control situations in our last meeting. So at the top of this meeting, we're going to go through some control situations as well, and it's kind of a continuation. These are videos I actually didn't get to on our last one. But we'll cover a few things as well. Before I get to the videos, one thing I want to kind of mention. As I've gotten some feedback from different people around the state in different situations, one thing that I want to clarify is around, and especially because it relates to wrestler safety, is H&C time, right? Head neck evaluation. And the two things I want to emphasize is one, remember that on H&C time, that we're never calling H&C time as an official, right? We're always going straight to injury time, and it is up to the appropriate healthcare professional during injury time to make the assessment and ask for H&C time, right? So we transition from injury to H&C time, and then we go to 5 minutes total, and that 5 minutes is also less any injury time that was used. So if we use 30 seconds of injury time, appropriate healthcare professional tells us that they need to do an H&C evaluation, then we've got 4.5 minutes left for the 5 minute total time. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we as officials should be, can and really should be, in a lot of these cases, letting the trainer know that this is an option. They don't always know the rules, right? They're not, they're there to help volunteer at that event or participate in that event and look out for the wrestler's safety, right? And they may be doing multiple sports, right? So, and yes, sometimes the coach can play that role, but if we're there and we go through an injury time and that trainer is evaluating that wrestler, we can approach that situation, go up to the trainer and say, do you need additional time for H&C evaluation? So we can ask that question, or we can say, you can utilize up to 5 minutes for H&C evaluation, but you have to let me know. We can do that right as we go from injury timeout. So just know that it's not something that we have to keep like under wraps, right? At the end of the day, this is a safety concern. We want to make sure that that wrestler is getting proper evaluation. And so just want to make sure that's clarified. Okay. Any questions on H&C, by the way, before we get into some of these videos? If you do, throw them in the chat. We'll do our best to get to it. All right, going to talk about some control situations. Hopefully these videos come through okay. Sometimes they can be a little choppy. I'm going to go ahead and play it a couple times. We'll throw a poll up. We are in the neutral positions, tied 1-1. Let me know what you got here. All right, it's going to play again. Both wrestlers are at ankles here. We're still in neutral. You'll see an adjustment here. Still in on one ankle on that one wrestler here. We got the other wrestler who hooks the leg and is behind the hips here. All right, so let me throw up the poll and tell me what you think in this situation. Here And you'll see it here momentarily. All right, hopefully that's coming up on the screen here. And I'll go ahead and play the video while we get the responses in here.
If you have comments, please drop them in the chat. So Daniel can have the microphone.
Is light blue green in this? Because it's hard to see the legs.
Oh, good question here. Blue shoes is red, which is the wrestler that we see behind the hips here at the end. All right. Still could get a few more. Got about 30 of the 55. All right, and we will close this out here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'll go ahead and end the poll. We'll share those results if you want to see those. Okay, so big majority on this one. We've got 82% saying still neutral. We do have a few saying takedown red. About 5 of us answered takedown red here. You know, I think this is certainly, as I'm freeze framed here, I think there's a temptation to call takedown red here because of the leg hooking. You know, that wrestler's behind the hips, not exactly above the hips, but is behind the hips and has hooked the leg. Why isn't this control? How come, you know, for the majority here, everyone's saying no control? Why not? We've got the leg hooked. We're behind the hips. Why isn't this a control situation?
Daniel Clayton said red had the leg hooked, but he's on his butt.
Not like you can't hear it. I mean,
And again, if you got comments, put them in the chat if you can, and we'll read them out. Powerless to improve. 3 points needed to be controlled. I'm not sure what that means. No control, keeps bumping on and off the mat. Hips aren't pressuring the opponent.
Now let me ask this. So I think I agree with a lot of these comments. We've got, if we look at red here, he's you know, butt was almost on the mat. Maybe right here he's able to get up a little bit. Let me ask you this: what if his hips were higher? Would you still give control here? With bottom wrestler in deep on that ankle, kind of straight with his legs straight out like that. What if he had a little bit more covering of the hips? Would that change the situation?
In my personal opinion,
if you scoot it up more, there's again comments in the chat if you can, and we'll read those out. They were higher a little earlier in the video. Until the wrestler can advance his position, no control. Leg is not quite hooked or quasi hooked.
Okay. Yeah, good comments, guys. So, you know, I think when we talk about what to look for in a control situation, and again, Rex mentioned it earlier, rule book says it, control is often felt. We have to make some explanations, right, when we make these judgment calls. And I'm hearing a lot of things and seeing things in the chat, right? Leg hooked, covering the hips. Is he able to improve his situation, right? So there's a combination of things. And I think the point of this is that we're not looking for any one thing, right? And that sometimes can be a trap. Sometimes we're looking for just the leg to be hooked. And if the leg is hooked, we have control, right? In this case, leg is hooked. And I agree, we don't have control. He doesn't have hip superiority either, right? He's really kind of below the hips, maybe in the best situation starts to, get up a little bit higher. And part of that is because he hasn't cleared that leg yet. This is kind of, they get in on ankles, right? Tries to pass the leg, is unable to pass the leg. And he's got that deep so much where he's, extended leg, and that extension is really keeping him from being able to cover the hips. And even if he gets a little bit over the hips, what are we restraining this opponent, right? Is there a restraining power? Is he able to exercise any kind of advantage, or are we just stuck there, right? So I would even take it a little bit further, even if you look at covering the hips in this situation, is there true restraining power? Okay, so, it's a combination of things. Understand that it's not one thing, and that's, one of many things that we need to look for in a control situation. And as we explain this, and we say no control, right, that's what we have to talk to. No hip superiority, right? Is not able to improve. No restraining power. No position of advantage.
Couple comments on stalemate, Daniel. They would have that, but again, that wasn't the point of this. It was just whether you have control or not in that situation. Yeah, stalemate may be your next option.
Absolutely. Yep. All right, good comments, guys. Next one. Similar situation. Let me know if things are any different in this situation. We'll go ahead and play it. A little choppy here, so let me start over again. And we're neutral. Gray singlet is green. Dark singlet here is red. All right. Let's play it again. Okay, we're on ankles. Red almost gets behind, but then green wrestle kind of gets his back exposed there for a bit. Looks like he gets in trouble. With the official here who's calling this match, sees that the green is in criteria here, gives a takedown, and plus we've got at least one near fall swipe, possibly two here. It looks like give him two near fall as well. Okay. All right, I'm going to launch the poll. And so give me a minute here. There's a lot of polls, so it takes a minute here to get to them. So hang on here. All right, so there you go. Okay, just a few more responses. All right, and I wish I would have liked to have seen that situation play out a bit. I wish it wouldn't have cut that so soon, so we could kind of see. I'm going to close this in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And okay, so we've got responses kind of spread out on this one. So the majority, 56%, are really agreeing with the official here. Sorry that for the typo here. That is supposed to say 3 takedown red. It says 3 TED red. 3 takedown red plus 2 near fall. Just a slight, about half of us say that. The other 15%, there's a 15% that just say 3 takedown red. Maybe it looks like they agree with the takedown, but maybe not the near fall. And I think the near fall is probably debatable. We can get to that in a second. But I guess if we combine those two, we've got about 60 to 70% here agreeing with that there is 3 takedown red. And then we've got about 20% saying still neutral, no control. So a couple of you said 2 near fall red, maybe that was misclick. Of course, you can't have near fall right unless you've got control. So you can't have near fall unless you give 3 points. Okay, so let's talk about it. You know, as we get to this position, you know, they're in on ankles, and I'm going to freeze frame a little bit. Well, one's they're on legs, really, not really ankles, right? One's a bit on the ankle. Referee almost gets behind him here, but doesn't maintain that position, doesn't give it here, but does give it here. And we don't have the benefit of seeing the other view, so we can't quite see how close he gets to criteria. He is stacked up there on the head. So this is where the official's giving 3 takedown. So do we have control here? Is there restraining power, and why? Is it simply the fact that that other wrestler's back is exposed, that we therefore have to establish control to count? Can that wrestler's back be exposed and there not be control? What do we think?
Yeah, a lot of comments. Daniel didn't have control until he posted his right hand to stop the roll. Reaction time, near fall when green was getting stacked. Couldn't count the swipes, no control beyond reaction time.
Okay, we got those who are beyond reaction time. I'm interested in when we think we have control and why. And so I guess, so Steve, you say not until he posted his hand. So I assume that means we're saying here when that hand's posted, is that what we mean? Then we're able to maintain it. That's kind of the indicator here.
Yep, when he stopped the roll.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Hey, Daniel, also another comment in the chat. I want to make sure you address. One of the comments in the chat said he was in near fall criteria beyond reaction time, therefore it's a takedown. And if you can expand on why that's not the reason why takedown should be given, that we could be in near fall criteria technically all period without control.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So you know, in these situations, and at this point in the meeting, you know, when we looked at control situations, this meeting we're focusing on a little more, I would say, advanced situations where we see a lot of it, especially in these more advanced levels of competitions where wrestlers are in on ankles, they're in on legs, they're scrambling, and we have to, you know, let those situations play out. And a lot of times when they're in on those ankles, and it's still neutral and there's no control, and they're both in their legs, their back is going to be exposed quite a bit. You know, and it may be not just from a roll, right? They may be on their back may be in criteria, you know, with beyond 45 for a few seconds, right? But it's not, when we think about control, it's not just merely the fact that someone's back is in near fall criteria that determines whether we have control, because that can happen in the action, especially in these kind of scramble situations. When we look for control, we have to think about the fundamentals of the rule, which is, again, there has to be controlled, right? Someone has to be controlled in that position by a position of advantage, right, where there's restraining power down on the mat. So just keep that in mind, that you could have situations where their back is exposed and it maybe seems like you should be counting, but if there isn't that criteria of restraining power and control, then you're going to let that situation continue. This one's a very tricky situation when I look at it. You know, I'm tempted to let this one play out. But I think there's a good comment. I think it was Steve in the chat who mentioned that as he doesn't roll through, and he's able to stop the roll through and post his arm out long enough. And that's just where you have to really make this determination to hold them and maintain them there beyond reaction time, for that to be control. And then you can start counting. But only when control is established can you then start counting near fall. I think you do have 2 swipes here, but it's hard to see from our side. I don't know. It may be 1 and 1 when I'm looking at this. Slow down in the moment's very difficult. I think he's certainly there for second, but I think he maybe pops out of it. But we don't have the benefit of the best position from here.
And Daniel, another point on that, if you know, and this is a little bit of a side comment, that if for some reason you get in a scramble and you go straight to near fall, you don't have to give the takedown signal or the control signal or reverse signal first. However, if you start swiping, you are indicating control as the official. If you start to swipe, if it goes that quick and you're in a scramble straight to near fall and you have to start your swipe count, you have just indicated control. You can't swipe a half a count and then determine that there was no control. You can, but you'll be changing your call. If you swipe, you are indicating control in any of those situations.
Perfect. All right, moving on, because we've got more similar videos, so I want to get through them. Great comments. Keep the participation coming in the chat and the polls. All right, one more control situation, and then we'll move to some other things. Again, very similar. This is kind of a scramble situation. We're neutral. All right, in on legs, in on ankles, fighting for control here. Okay, Red still got his foot kind of locked up there. Unfortunately, we're getting blocked on the near fall here, but he only gave 1 swipe. All right, I'll do it one more, and then we'll do the poll here. Is this same situation as before? Different? All right, let's launch the next poll. There you go. Got the same typo on this one, so sorry. You can tell I copied.
We won't talk about the neutral misspelling.
Wasn't me.
There you go.
All right, let's end this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. End poll. Okay, very kind of similar distribution as what we had before. So maybe we didn't change anyone's minds. We're all kind of looking at this very similarly. But we do have most people saying 3 takedown Red to near fall. I understand the near fall here is a bit tricky because we can't see it. We have no vision from this angle here that's on the screen now. I think as we get to the other side, it looks like, you know, we're just going to assume that the official's in the better position here to call near fall. So it's possible that we just have 3 takedown, which is, you know, about 70% of us is where we're at. Let's, you know, I want to hear from maybe the 25% that say still neutral. What's different about this situation in that group than what we saw previously? You know, they're in on legs, back gets exposed, but some of you aren't convinced maybe that there is restraining power. Be curious to hear what someone thinks from that group.
Like a Jonesy tilt, looked like a takedown. Agree, when the top wrestler arrested the bottom wrestler's ability to turn with his right hand, we had control. Red hooked the arm. Fish hooked the arm, he demonstrated control.
Okay. Hearing a lot from the control camp. It's good. Just wondering from the no control, I just want to understand maybe what the hesitation might be. Maybe we can talk through it, and maybe there's something, you know, we can focus on.
No comments coming in.
Okay.
I don't know why.
Yeah, you know, I mean, so the Jonesy tilt, right? Where he gets around that arm here, hooks the arm, the elbow, starts to maintain him in criteria. Again, he hasn't cleared that leg. So I understand the temptation to say still neutral because we're not behind. We haven't cleared the leg. And similar to that first video, you know, where he's kind of sitting back a little bit, but now he's kind of up on both knees. He's able to use those as leverage. Even though he's got his ankle here, he's able to use his arm and hook it and then tilt and maintain. And again, this is where it goes back to maintaining that wrestler beyond reaction time, exercising a position of advantage, putting that wrestler and maintaining them there in criteria enough to indicate control. You know, but I understand the hesitation to not do it because he hasn't passed that leg yet. And so I was just curious if others, you know, agreed with that or not, but and what your reasoning was. But I think this is similar to the last situation we had where, because of the red wrestler here in dark singlet, able to use that arm and keep them there and maintain an advantage, and put them in criteria, shows that he's exercising some position of advantage and control.
Great. Jack said, as it was said earlier, just because the back exposed does not mean takedown.
Yep. And again, it's not just they're exposed. We're looking at what's causing it and is the person being controlled into that situation. All right. Good thoughts, guys. Appreciate it. You know, we see these, we're going to see these, especially in postseason, right? And you know, the let it burn is good advice, and patience, and just make sure that when you think about application of the rule, again, to summarize, that you're thinking about more than just one thing, right? Multiple things have to be in play to be in control. We went over this in our last meeting, and this is just kind of a summary where we've taken those photos from the rule book, the 7 of them that kind of talk about control. And I've just added some comments here, just kind of as a refresher. And if you look, especially like in the middle, where this middle square where a leg is hooked, right? And the rule book says, just because the bottom wrestler is around the leg, it says it doesn't necessarily stop the takedown, right? So that's the key, is that it doesn't mean that just because you see that picture that leg hooked means takedown, right? It just means it doesn't necessarily stop it. And you're looking for hip position, you're looking for restraining power, you're still looking for all the things that require control, right? Down on the mat, restraining power, inbounds, beyond reaction time. And we went over in our last meeting some of the top situations where you've got butt down on the mat from one wrestler and the other wrestlers around one or two legs, whether you have a crotch lift or not. And again, those situations don't necessarily stop the takedown. They can stop the takedown though. And you got to look at the position of that bottom wrestler and how their feet are maybe posting up on the mat. Are they on both on their are they on flat on their butt, or are they just on one hip? These are all things that we try to talk about through these clinics, right? So that you kind of understand how to recognize these situations and know how to talk through, what the indicators are control. It's not just about a picture. It's not just about one thing. We have to kind of look it through more complex scenarios. Okay. And again, this PowerPoint will be ready for, available to you if you want to use this as just kind of a quick refresher. All right, shifting over. I guess this is also control situation, but a little bit different. So I'll play it. This will be kind of quick. It's a little blurry, so I apologize. Spencer won that one 6-2. Aaron looking for a throw here. Spencer doing a nice job keeping his weight back. All right. I think this one was making the rounds on the internet fairly recently, so my apologies if you've seen it. Aaron looking for a throw here. Spencer doing a nice job keeping his weight back.
Is that the one we saw first, Daniel?
What's that?
Is that the one we saw first? Very similar to the first video, if it's not different.
No, should be different.
Great, great.
We look at you just saw a semi-Merkel situation, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure a different video didn't pop up. So, all right, so let's get that poll up. Here we go.
This time it's the word reversal, Daniel. We're counting.
Man,
Oh, hey, it's all good. It's all good.
need my brain checked.
I'm just giving you a hard time, man. Can you run one more time the video, Dan?
Yep.
Throw here. Spencer doing a nice job keeping his weight back. Aaron looking for a throw here. Spencer doing a nice job keeping his weight back.
Referee's getting a nice close view there. Just making sure.
That was a great job by
All right, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, we have about 67% saying 3 takedown green, and then we've got 30% of us saying 3 takedown red, which is the dark singlet, and then 2 reversal green. No one went for unnecessary slam. Okay, so yeah, I think so I agree. I think with the consensus here that this is only 3 takedown green, as opposed to red, who is the one who's applying what looks like a Merkel here. So let's talk about why. We've got a hand on the mat. We've got The inside leg in. What's missing? Why isn't this a Merkel takedown? We've got 2/3 of us who say they're not giving the takedown here. They're only giving the takedown to Green at the end, who is able to get control here at the end. What are our thoughts? Why isn't this just a Merkel hand down on the mat? Certainly beyond reaction time, right? But what's missing? Only one leg. Okay, we in a Merkel we can just have one leg, right? Hip dominance, possibly, although I don't know if we have that in a Merkel necessarily. That's what makes them so tricky, right? When you're just on the inside of the leg. Steve, lack of restraining power. Red was improving. Yeah, I think there is something here about restraining power. I'm curious to know what about Red's positioning that's maybe missing here. Behind both arms. Okay, that's an interesting one. Maybe we'll get to that. You know, do we need to be behind both arms for a Merkel situation? I don't think so.
No
Um,
dominance, no hip superiority, only one leg.
should be around the head and chest. Brian, yep. Is missing both arms behind the arms. Can't see the arms where they are. It is a little difficult to see, guys, and I apologize for the blurriness. Okay, so I kind of froze frame here a little bit. And I think when we talk about restraining power, I think one of the things that's missing isn't so much hip control, because you don't really get that with a Merkel. When a Merkel situation, you're really looking for upper body restraining power. And that upper body restraining power could be under both arms. And that's what's in the rule book. That's kind of your clear cut. But it could be a front headlock situation where you're around the shoulder, underneath. Could be around the head in a legal type situation. It doesn't have to be around both arms. It could be around the torso in some way, or around the shoulder and around the head. But I think you need to be, your chest itself needs to be in a position where you're superior and over. And this, to me, if you look at his position, he's hanging on himself, right? His head's on the mat. He's barely hanging on. Think of it as similar to like a head and arm throw, right? If you do a head and arm throw and you're pulling a wrestler over and you get them to their side, but they're not even, barely at 90 degrees, and you're cranking it, do you really have restraining power? No. And this is kind of similar, right? He's kind of grasping, but his chest is way off the body. And if we go back to Merkel situations, and I usually have I have another Merkel kind of mock-up. This is the two arms here, right? But this is where I said leg trap with control of head or shoulders or upper body. So you could be behind both arms. You could be around the head. You could be around the body. But, your superior position here. But if your chest and your body, you're completely off that wrestler and you're just hanging on and that hand's down on the mat, don't know that there is restraining power there. And I think that's what we see in that video is the restraining power, and it's because of the position and the type of hold that the red wrestler, the dark singlet, has in that situation. Yeah, he dragged him to the mat. It's hard to be in control with your face on the mat. I mean, there might be situations, but it is probably rare.
Carl's mentioned, what about the fact that he drug him to the mat?
Again, we're looking for restraining power, right? He drug him. You could drag someone in a head and arm, but still not have restraining power once you get down on the mat, right? Does the foot have to be wrapped around the defensive wrestler's leg? It doesn't have to be wrapped around, but you do need control of at least the inside leg in a Merkel. All right. So that's what we're looking for, everyone. I think if you got a hand planted down on the mat like you did there, and if you were actually had upper body, then I think there's enough reaction time where that could be a takedown. But in this situation, because of the position of that top wrestler, that is not a takedown for red.
And Daniel, Terry asked, does the foot have to be wrapped around the defensive wrestler's leg?
Well, that's what I tried to address. I think the answer was in a Merkel, you do need to have at least one in, if that's what he's asking. Meaning if he didn't have a leg in, you know, hopefully those legs are at least behind the hips then, as opposed to out to the side. You're looking for some kind of control of the lower body there as well. Having one leg in helps, or having two legs behind, right, with superiority would work too. Side by side, not necessarily, right? Okay. All right, next one. Quick one. All right, another hands down on the mat situation. Yeah, trying to get a Merkel here, it looks like. Okay, I'll launch the poll and we will I'll play the video again as well, but let me know what you think. All right, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. End poll. And here's our results. Okay, we're about 70-30 here. 70% saying no takedown, but hey, a third of us, decent amount saying 3 takedown. So what I guess the first question here is we're down on the mat for a second. I guess the main question is reaction time. Beyond reaction time, or is it not reaction time? Were we still struggling for restraining power? What do we think? We've got saying no restraining power and no reaction time. Clayton, hands not on mat beyond reaction time. Yeah, reaction time seems to be the theme here. Jack mentions second time hands come down is what gave reaction time. Let me see if I can see what you're seeing here. I see hands down once and they just kind of drag for a second here. So we got 2 hands down.
Also, something to keep in mind too, just the hands down themselves is not a criteria in itself. Are they supporting weight? Are they posted? Are they dragging? Are they brushing?
Yeah, this is a tricky situation. When we're looking at this, like I freeze frame here, right? We're different than the previous situation where we've got upper body, I think, advantage here. If I freeze frame it and we're got 2 hands down on the mat, and remember this is high school, so I know college used to have a hand touch rule. They don't think anymore they do. So we're always looking for hands down on the mat beyond reaction time. Hand or hands, could be 1 hand, could be 2. In this case, we have 2. You know, personally, I think this is a question of reaction time. I do think that there's a possible argument that he's in a position of advantage for a moment. The question is that moment long enough? And in my personal view, and again, maybe I'm just personally a little bit more stingy with reaction time. but I think most of us are aligned because I think 70% of us said the same thing. That not quite there. I think that we're not, those hands are not down on that beyond reaction time. I think it's very, very close. Very, very close for a 3 takedown. You know, maybe another half a second. I don't know. That's, but when this is a reaction time for a lot of us is a feel thing, right? There's no clock count. There's no set number of seconds. For me, it's a feel situation, and I just don't think it's quite beyond reaction time personally. But I think that is this is mostly a question around reaction time. I also think there's something to be said about the continued motion of this wrestler. Yeah, there we go. Troy mentioned it. The bottom wrestler is stationary, might lean takedown. Exactly. I think that if we're still, then you might have enough reaction time, you know, beyond reaction time to give it. I think what sways me there is it's almost, we've got reaction time, and the fact that he's moving also begs to question whether there's true restraining power. The fact that we're still kind of in one motion. So that's kind of, I'm in that camp as well. I think it's the combination that he's still moving and that those hands weren't quite down long enough that we've got control here.
And also, Dana, at the very end was a stoppage for stalling for failure to attempt to return.
Exactly. And if, you know, we'll get into stalling in a second. If we get the control here, and I'll play this out, I mean, yeah, we're probably stalling here. if you give the control, right?
My question was why did he stop it, right?
He gave the 3 takedown. Oh, right. Why did he stop it? Oh, yeah, exactly. He's on his feet. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. Maybe it's the second one. Who knows?
Or the 2-pointer.
That's what I meant. The 2-pointer, not second one. The 2-point. So, okay. All right. Moving on. Good conversation, guys. This one's going to be a little bit blurry because I'm trying to zoom in on this. So try to look closely. I know we're not going to be able to see everything here. We're looking for locked hands. And I'm very curious to where kind of people, how they gauge reaction time here or not. I'm going to go ahead and play it. Okay. By the way, time runs out here. So it looks like the hands, we're neutral. Hands are locked, not after. They're locked around the waist, and they maintained being locked as they hit the mat. So keep that in mind. It's hard to see here.
They were locked right prior to him obviously drawing the penalty before he baited him.
Yeah.
Second time
The baiting at the end, by the way, time was already out as
Right.
he squats down. So just keep that in mind here. We're looking at this when he brings him down to the mat into kind of a sit out situation. Those hands are locked as they come down, and then they do become unlocked. The question is, what do you got?
Comments, any poll here, Daniel, or just comment? Oh, sorry, I see the poll now. 3 takedown or no takedown?
No, hang on. I got to get the other poll. Sorry, I was telling everyone to stop yelling in here.
Hope that wasn't your wife.
It's an active household at the Rawson house right now. So, all right, there we go.
I want to give you props on spelling, Daniel.
Yeah, I worked hard on this one. All right, could use some more response. Got about 30 of you. TV or no? All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, end poll. Okay, it's about 70-30 here. We've got most people saying technical violation, 1 point red. About a third of us saying no TV. And again, I know it's hard to see here. I'm going to be honest on this one. I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer. I mean, I think one of the reasons that we go through these is try to get some consensus as a group on kind of what we think here is. I personally, I'm just going to play it. It could be stingy for me. I think I lean more on that it wasn't quite beyond reaction time, but I'm outvoted. So this is a good check for me possibly, but I'm curious to what people think. It's kind of hard to talk. I guess it's just going to be feeling, but you know, we've got the hands locked when we come down on the mat. I don't know, maybe let's just play it real quick. We've got maybe a second that passes there.
If that.
Look, you could call it. I mean, most people would. I think I'm the outlier a little bit. How do you talk through a situation like that? How do you explain, you know, the technical violation that it was not too quick? I mean, what's you get challenged? Well, what's the explanation? Is there anything else that you're looking at besides just how long they're down on the mat? I'm just curious here, and I know it's not easy to talk through, but
Well, I'm going to speak up because I actually struggle with locked hands, and what I'm trying to think through in my mind, if I'm on the mat and I see locked hands and it registers in my head that they're locked and they're still locked, that's reaction time. It's now I'm not saying I can apply it because I just said I struggle with this, but it's that question of, well, how long is reaction time? And if I can see it, think, and conclude, that's reaction time. I have no idea. I'm just throwing something out.
yeah, good feedback. I mean, we're all going to have, because there's no set time frame, we all have to have kind of our own criteria in a way where at least how we interpret reaction time. Yeah.
And another way too to think about that is reaction time for a takedown. How much time are you giving for a takedown situation? That's reaction time as well. Is it the same reaction time no matter what? I can tell you it doesn't say it in the book anywhere.
Yeah, and I think the question I would ask is instead of the time, right, is, and I think it's related to what Troy was saying, is was there a reasonable amount of time that top wrestler, sorry, could have released? Did they really, you know what I mean? I think that's another, just something to think about instead of, well, it was 1 second or half second, you know, whatever that is, because there is no time period. But in a reasonable, you know, in this move, as he's got it locked and we come down, was there a reasonable amount of time where he could have released? And if the answer is yes in your mind, I think that's another way to talk to it. But you can't go to the table and say, oh, it was 3 seconds, 2 seconds, right? So, all right, I was just curious where we were. It's interesting. I think this is where, and look, we've got both the official and head official clearly as clear as day, with as indicated by their signals, I guess, are in full agreement, and that's what we want to see. What I would just also say is at any time, especially getting the postseason, you can bet if I'm a head official on the mat calling and I've got an assistant and it's a locked hand situations, especially if it's a little ambiguous, I'm always going to check with my AR. That's just me. And if we're in a line, I'm going to feel a lot better about that, right? So use your assistant official, and they may be in the better position, right? So make sure you're utilizing your assistant official. All right, we've got a few more, but I'm going to just do one more, and then we'll call it a night. We'll save. I had some stalling situations, and maybe if those who are around for some of the postseason discussions, Rex, I can maybe hand those off to you.
Sure.
This is a quick one too, so I'll go ahead and play this one, and then we'll wrap up here. Right, very short. Raise on bottom. All right, one more. All right, here comes the pole. What you got?
You run it again, Daniel. A comment that it was like a slideshow. He's knocking your video.
Yeah, it is. It is not the best quality. I apologize.
I got your back.
All right, got a lot of responses here. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, a little more split. This is probably the most split one we've had so far. About 60-40 here. So 60% of you are saying just 2 reversal. So gray singlet underneath, comes underneath and gets 2 reversal. But we've got about 40% saying this would be 1 escape and 3 takedown as well. In this situation, this is where with the new rules, I think it's going to become more important that we talk about how we look at this situation because of the 3 takedown, right? The point differential is greater, where it used to be a 1 point difference, and now we're talking 2 points between a reversal and a 1 escape and 3 takedown, right? So I think it's probably more important we get this right. So let's talk about from the 2 reversal folks. Why is there no escape? Why are you going just straight? So he goes to the legs, stands up, turns, dives, kind of faces him, goes to the legs. Why is there no escape? And at this point, you can go in the chat if someone wants to unmute too. Towards the end, I'm happy to hear your thoughts.
Continuous action, too quick, within reaction time, no lost contact. Defendable position. That's the great term that we're looking for by Coach Lees.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Rex. There's no reaction time to defend either wrestler before the escape happens.
Continuous action. So yeah, I do think reaction time is a key determining factor here. Keep the escape in your pocket because VT is calling for reverse. Let me ask a question. What is an escape? What do you need for an escape? What does the rule book say? We had loss of control here. Why aren't we given 1 for loss of control?
It's not the end of time.
What is an escape?
It was a continuous motion. There was no separation of motion.
So an escape is what? Who knows the rule? Who wants to tell me what criteria needs to be in place for an escape?
Stand and face each other, gain a neutral position and face each other.
There we go. I was just waiting for one of the RIs to jump in here, right? Close.
It's
So,
not an RI anymore.
oh, there we go. So we've got so neutral position beyond reaction time, I think, is the verbiage that comes to mind. So reaction time plays a key. Neutral position comes to mind. There's verbiage in the casebook and other parts of the rulebook that talk about loss of control, but that is one of the criteria. It's loss of control, and it gains a neutral position beyond reaction time. So, and I think this is a confusion that we often get into when we talk, especially maybe when coaches are asking for clarification. Hey, 1 for loss of control. Well, there's no such thing as loss of control. There's an escape. An escape is neutral position beyond reaction time. And so that's the key thing here is there's clearly a loss, but in one continuous motion here, there really isn't a moment where you've gained a neutral position. There is a loss of control momentarily, but then immediately we've got Gray in the singlet going straight for the legs and getting a position of advantage. For this to be an escape, once he turns and faces, there needs to be reaction time. And there's no reaction time. It's straight down to the legs. So this is, to me, a good example of where we would go for 2 reversal, not 3 and 1. And remember, if you are 1 and 3, if you do 1 and 3 and you think it was quick, and I, will be contested, it's okay to wave that off and to clarify. Sometimes we all make those calls really quick. We all do. And so there's no shame in getting the call right and, adjusting accordingly if you feel like you maybe jumped the gun a bit and gave that escape too quickly. If you gave 1 and you could say, oh, nope, and then just say 2 reversal and be done with it. So, I think I'm in agreement here with the consensus here, the 60% of us. Not neutral beyond.
Wrestlers must obtain a neutral position. That's the high school escape rule in that.
All right, and then Clay gave a good point. Let's say if on this freeze frame here, or maybe he goes to the legs and we get here, and maybe he collapses on top of them, right? Then you probably give 1 escape. Because where he was kind of in the middle of a potential reversal here. There was some loss of control. So if we got time runs out, we're out of bounds or something, that might be different. But yeah, if time goes out, we would maybe give an escape here.
I don't agree with that, Daniel.
But
If
then
they
it
go
would
out
be-
of bounds in that position and you haven't called an escape, they're still locked up. That's no escape.
Would you say the same thing for if time goes out?
That's what I just said. No, I don't. I agree that in this position right here, he comes back in, he's non-defensible. This is not an escape at all.
I beg to differ.
Yeah, I agree. I think if because we didn't meet the criteria of beyond reaction time, I think you're right. Yeah.
Now, if it was so happened that this wrestler on the bottom was not around the leg, but the top wrestler had a headlock, front headlock, then that would be an escape.
One thing the case book would say is not when they're locked up, but if bottom wrestler grabs that leg and lifts it, and then they go out of bounds or time goes out, then that would be 1 point escape.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Yeah, I agree. Good clarification. Yep.
I'm going to admit being confused on something, and I'm sorry to just speak up. I don't have my rule book with me. Does the rule book include the language reaction time, or does it simply say neutral position? So Daniel was saying reaction time is in the language?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we didn't get to some everyone's favorite topic, stalling, and maybe we'll save that for some of the postseason stuff. I just had a couple videos on that, and it really just kind of went to some of the nuances of stalling versus stalemate as well. But we can get into that later. But I think I really appreciate everyone's participation, both in the polls and in the chat and on here. I think it was a really good conversation, and hopefully, we've got some consensus a little bit on on some of these situations, and we can be better aligned. We're not always going to get them right. We're not always going to be agree, and I'm not the authority, obviously, on all these situations. But hopefully, we've got some additional criteria to work with that will help us kind of reason through some of these situations. So, and then your input was really important to being able to.
I have a scenario question that I'd like to throw out there.
Shoot.
So I had a tournament this past weekend, and two wrestlers were going at it. Well, I heard the headgear snap, like pop off, but it was still on. Both wrestlers stopped, and the wrestler with the unlatched headgear was still on his head. He looked at me and was like, "Are you going to stop the match?" So I dinged him with stalling, and because I had caution stalling already, dinged him with stalling, and then told him to fix his headgear, and then went about the match. Was that the proper thing to do, or did I make a mistake on that?
Personally, sometimes these wrestlers are just confused. They think that, as soon as the headgear becomes displaced, that that the match should be stopped, and obviously that's not always the case. So in my, from a coach's standpoint, right, they should always coach their kids. Look, you don't stop wrestling until the referee blows that whistle. However, I don't think that if there's confusion about it, I don't know, maybe if he was insisting it, then maybe there's an unsportsmanlike, but I don't know if it's stalling, because I don't think there's an intent to avoid wrestling. I think it's either going to be confusion, or it's in the area of unsportsmanlike where he's telling you what to do very abruptly and directly, maybe disrespectfully. That's just me. I don't know if anyone else would handle that differently, but.
Yeah, no, that's great. Good points on that. And something, Daniel, also an idea. I hope everybody's familiar with the forum and the rules discussion page on the forum where a lot of these things are talked about. We can put some videos out there. Daniel, Jake, last one we can. Jake had a question earlier about head neck concussion time, H&C time. Said that we always start with injury time, never H&C time. But Jake asked, what if it's an obvious H&C situation, like they are holding that neck?
Yeah, great question, Jake. And it's still always going to be an injury time. So we're always calling injury time, and we're then getting them to the attention of a coach or an appropriate healthcare professional, the trainer. And H&C time has to be initiated by the healthcare professional or the trainer. So not us. And also remember that the rules about what takes precedence. So if it is a recovery time situation, so someone injures their head or neck as a result of a slam, right, an illegal hold, there is no H&C time. Okay, they must resolve that situation within the 2 minutes of recovery. So keep that in mind. That actually came up. I saw it happen on a tournament a few weeks ago. And I jumped in there to remind the official because I saw them running a 5-minute clock on an illegal slam. So remember, blood time, a recovery, those things take precedence.
Awesome. Any other quick questions before we go, Daniel? That was great again. Thanks for that. Good clarification. Appreciate the clarity there. Please use that forum. Please use the forum for rule discussions. If you have a video or a link to a video, please put it out there so everyone across the state can see it. We had upwards of 64 people on the call tonight, which is great. We have almost 320 officials across the state. So again, quick math, we roughly had a fifth of our state on tonight, which is good numbers. But if we can put rules discussions out there on the forum and have those, Daniel can hop out there and participate as well, and we can share those for prosperity times and referring back to. So that's excellent. Any other quick questions before we take off? Postseason time. Remember your mechanics. Remember your stalling. Have a chance to get into stalling, but if you have a video or a scenario, put it out there so Daniel can take a look at it, and we can talk through it there and let everybody in the state see some of that discussion, which is excellent.
Alexis in the chat has a question about locking hands. If I see locking hands, I've been stopping the match to let the table know and award the points. Should I keep the match going or keep what I'm doing? So remember, you've got a signal and a point that you can award. And if your table's paying attention, like, as they should, there should be no need to stop the match. Now I understand, I've been at duels this year. Maybe that table's behind. I still wouldn't stop it, but I would make a note if you know that they aren't going to get it. And if there's a break in the action at some point and you need to step in and tell them to pay attention and award the point, then you can. That's always something you can do with the score table. But you want to avoid stopping the match at all possible. Use your proper signal. And one thing that we talk about in training, and I still do, is I will hold a point in the air until it's on the board. And it might be obnoxious. I'll just keep it up there and then and finally they'll put it there. So if you have to use, I would exhaust that tactic before stopping the match.
That's a great mechanic, Daniel. Great mechanic. Gabe had a quick one. Clarification on locking hands position. I think Gabe may know this. Locking hands position. How is it enough reaction time for locked hands, but not for the takedown? And Gabe, but I know Daniel can add to it, but simply that there's more criteria than just reaction time on a takedown. Lock hands is by itself. Locked hands is once that defensive wrestler returns to the mat in a control situation, that reaction time is only for the locked hands. However, determining from a neutral to a takedown position, it's more than just reaction time. You've got to have hip control down on the mat beyond reaction time. Daniel, anything else?
Yeah, no, nothing to add.
Excellent. Thanks, John. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight. Great job,
Thank you,
Daniel.
guys.
As always. Really appreciate that. This is recorded. It will be posted on the website under the meetings tab, so everybody can go back and refer to it. We will send it out to all members of TWA as well to review if they wish, and look forward to having the next one. If you are a postseason official or a state tournament official, we will be having one or two more of these as well to talk over some things prior to the big dance. So talk to everyone soon. Thanks again for your time. Thanks, Daniel. Good night.